There was a time when my mornings felt like extensions of yesterday's chaos. When I woke up already behind, already tense, already carrying the weight of old worries before the day even began. And I didn't realize how much it was costing me because exhaustion had become familiar. And familiar things feel safe even when they read draining. And so I moved through my mornings like a ghost present, but not alive. The change didn't come from some dramatic, overnight transformation. It came from small rituals, barely noticeable at first, almost laughable in their simplicity, but they were gentle enough to bypass my resistance, and consistent enough to start rearranging my inner world. And over time, these little acts became the reason I no longer recognized the person I used to be not. Because I became someone new, but because I finally became someone true. The first routine was waking up without rushing, allowing myself a few silent breaths before touching my phone, before opening myself to the world, before absorbing other people's urgency, because I learned that the world becomes softer when you approach it slowly. And the Stoics were right. Our mornings are the doorway to our judgment. And if the doorway is chaotic, everything that passes through it becomes blurred. So I began waking like a guest in my own life, quietly, respectfully, with a sense of presence that felt almost sacred. And it was in those first still minutes that I realized how much of my suffering came from moving too fast to hear my own thoughts. The second routine was making space for clarity, not in a dramatic ritual, but in something as simple as sitting with a glass of water and asking myself one question: what would make today meaningful? Not productive, not impressive, meaningful. And some days the answer was a small task, a gentle conversation, or simply not abandoning myself when things became difficult. And learning to ask that question softened the fog of my mind. Because clarity, I discovered, isn't loud, it's quiet. And most of us miss it because we've forgotten how to slow down enough to hear it. The third routine was taking care of my body before taking care of the world. Not through punishment disguised as discipline, but through movement that felt like gratitude. Walking, breathing, anything that reminded me I lived inside something miraculous, something resilient, something worth tending to. And this softened me in a way I didn't expect, because for so long I had carried my body like a burden, not a companion. And the moment I began treating myself with gentleness was the moment I stopped needing the world to give me what I refused to give myself. The fourth routine was choosing one thing to do with intention, and allowing myself to feel pride, not the loud kind, but the quiet acknowledgement that I showed up, that I tried, that I didn't abandon myself midway. And this small habit was what rebuilt my discipline, because I learned that discipline grows not from force, but from self-respect. And self-respect grows from completing the promises we whisper to ourselves when no one is watching. But the routine that changed me the most, the one that made me almost unrecognizable, was learning to begin my day without carrying yesterday into it. And this was the hardest part, because yesterday has a way of clinging to the edges of our consciousness, trying to insert itself into our present moment. And for years I let it, because I didn't know I had a choice. The Stoics speak often of the present as the only thing we truly own. And I understood the words, but not the wisdom, until I started practicing a simple morning question. Is this mine to carry today? And more often than not, the answer was no. This old fear isn't mine to carry. No. This memory doesn't belong in this morning. No. This regret is not a companion I need to greet the sunrise with. And letting go even a little made room for something I hadn't felt in years. Peace that didn't need to be earned. Over time, these routines didn't just change my mornings, they changed my reflection. Not the one in the mirror, but the inner reflection. The feeling of who I was becoming. Because I stopped waking up to fight my life, and started waking up to meet it. Gently, deliberately, without the old panic that once lived permanently beneath my ribs. And that is why I say, they made me unrecognizable. Not because I became someone extraordinary, but because I stopped living like a stranger to myself. And there is a quiet power in that, a power so soft you might miss it, unless you pay attention. A power that rises not in shouts, but in whispers. The mornings I live now feel like a second chance, given every 24 hours. A reminder that I can start again, that I can begin quietly, that I can choose presence over panic, clarity over noise, meaning over momentum, and peace over pressure. And in this slow, almost invisible transformation, I learned something the ancient Stoics knew long before me. Your life doesn't change when you force yourself to be different. Your life changes when you choose to begin differently. And some mornings, that beginning is nothing more than a breath steady, gentle, yours.